We have two more presentations for you all. The next one is another one that wasn't on the official ticket, so here's a bonus for you all. It's called QuinteQ. Darin Olson is going to be presenting. Darin Olson, come on up, my friend. How's it going? Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Do you want this one? Sure.
We leave that one for questions.
Good.
Right. As you can tell from my name, I'm not Dutch. However, my CEO and CCO are, so I'm here by the grace of the consulate and some obscure brother-in-law medieval rule. I'm here as CTO of QuinteQ, and we are purpose-formed to take flywheel technology and push it into the market. Now, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. QuinteQ is a flywheel technology that has been developed over the past 10 years at the expense of $20 million by Boeing in their R&D effort. Boeing called the other two fellas and said, look, we've got this flywheel, it's developed, we don't know what to do with it. And we went and looked at it, and we came to the conclusion that what you do with it is you form a company to push it into market, thus QuinteQ. The existing prototypes already do everything you want them to do. They have done the CNF, they have done the concept and feasibility, the prototyping, the alpha, the beta. We're taking it into the pre-production and going from there. To give you an idea why this flywheel is so unique, it is a absolutely no contact, zero mechanical bearing flywheel. It's all magnetic levitation. Magnetic levitation sounds very easy. When you start talking to the guys that managed to get it done, it's not that easy, and Boeing is the only flywheel that can do magnetic levitation at all. Now, what that means is that it's extremely low losses. If you let this thing just idle, it will run down its own energy at about 0.1% per hour, meaning that if you unplug it, it will run itself for about 40 days. Turns out that QuinteQ is the official energy storage system used by Noah on the Ark. In addition to that, because there's no physical bearing involved in the system, it has an extremely long life. There's simply nothing to break. There's one moving part, the rotor in the flywheel, and that one moving part doesn't touch anything. So it says a 20-year lifespan. Basically, if you ask me what kills it in year 21, I can't tell you. We have 250,000 cycles of you deep discharge it, recharge it. If you ask me what kills it at 250,000 plus 1 cycles, I can't tell you. There's simply nothing to break. There's one moving part. In terms of efficiency, rather than a battery where you get maybe 70% of the power you put in back out when you want it, a flywheel, this flywheel gives you better than 95% of the power you put in back out when you ask for it. And finally, you know, if you don't like the idea of flywheels, think of this simply as a mechanical storage battery. Now, where are we? If you do the startup speak, we went through an exercise and developed our MVP, our minimally viable product, and that actually turns out to be a thing called frequency regulation on the grid. If you're not a grid guy, don't worry about it. Frequency regulation is something that Tesla invented, obviously, because you don't need a frequency regulator on a DC. And ever since AC has been invented, frequency regulation has been a challenge. The smaller your grid is, the greater the challenge. The more renewable penetration you have, the greater your challenge. The more electric cars you plug into your grid, the greater the challenge. To give you an idea, PJM, which is the biggest, or at least the most sophisticated ISO in the United States, came out 2 days ago now and said that because of renewable penetration, and they're on the East Coast, because of renewable penetration, they are going to have to get 1.5 gigawatts of new frequency regulation on their grid. 1.5 gigawatts from a flywheel perspective is $1.5 billion in market opportunity, give or take. You say that's a really big number, there's no way they really mean that. No, they do mean that because they also said in the same study that they are going to need $14 billion in new transmission built into their grid just to accommodate the renewables that are going to be coming in. The follow-on product is actually the bigger market, as if the 50 billion isn't big enough. The follow-on product is a flywheel energy storage, rather than just frequency regulation, where we take the existing Boeing structure, it's so nicely designed by Boeing, we pull out the existing rotor, we put in a current generation rotor, and now we can go into the 4 to 6 hour market, 4 to 6 hour power storage market, which allows you to do things like where California talks about flattening the duck. It basically allows you to charge up the flywheel using PV, and then when you get home, you charge up your electric car with the energy that hasn't had to come in over the grid. Finally, where we are, what we're doing, we're standing literally on the shoulders of giants. This has been a 10-year effort by Boeing. It's a $20 million plus effort by Boeing. And when we've gone out and done this through this MPV exercise, we already have the market traction. If I had the MPV now, I already would have been booking sales. What we need the initial kick of investment of $7.5 million. That gets us our MPV at 2 sites in the United States under test. And finally, what we're going to do with that, we're building 10 to 20 systems. We're splitting it. We're talking to the top of the food chain, and we're talking to the bottom of the grid food chain to put the system under test. Thank you very much. I'm going to not do that.
What's a flywheel?
Pardon me?
What's a flywheel?
What is a flywheel? Basically, it's a mechanical battery. In other words, you have a motor generator sitting on the top and a rotor inside, which is just basically a spinning mass. And when you want to pull energy off the grid, you make the mass spin faster. When you want to put energy back on the grid, you make the mass spin slower. So you switch from being a motor to spin it up to a generator to slow it down. That's basically it. Now, in terms of what a flywheel is generically, flywheels have been around for 15,000 years. I mean, a kick stone underneath your potter's wheel, that's a flywheel.
Well, if nobody wants to ask questions, I'm happy to ask questions. So, how large are these constructions of flywheels? Because we have flywheels in cars trying to regenerate energy, which are by far as efficient as you claim here that you can do. So I'm really intrigued how large is one system and how do you do that?
Okay. It's a good question. I mean, the flywheel in your car is there to kind of smooth out the fact that you've only got, well, you used to have 8 cylinders, now you're down to 4. And so you get 4 kicks every rotation, so the flywheel smooths that out. The way this works is exactly similar. Basically, you just have an inertial mass and you're increasing or decreasing it. That unit, which is 100 kilowatts of frequency regulation, is about the size of an industrial refrigerator. And you could put 10 of them in a shipping container and you drop it on somebody's substation gravel parking lot or gravel lot inside their fences, and you hook it up to the grid, and it just gives you a megawatt then of frequency stabilization.
What is the cost of production for one of these units?
The cost of production, it depends upon how you want to measure it. You know, a flywheel is very heavy. It's not going to compete with a lithium-ion battery. But you don't look at it that way because we're going to park ourselves in a substation lot and just stay there for 20 years. The cost then is looked at as a utility of a cost per cycle, which is how much does it cost me every time you guys come in and support the grid. It works out to less than 4 cents.
Hands up high. Somebody in the back? Go ahead. No? Yes, sir?
Darin, what are the alternatives for the incumbents at the moment?
Well, actually the alternatives for frequency regulation are the way they do it now, and that is that you take a gas peaker plant, which is extremely inefficient in terms of its ability to produce energy. You run it up to about, say, 70% of its capacity, which it doesn't like to be. It likes to be at full capacity. And then you let it ride up and down and try to respond to the changes in frequency. The utilities don't like it. They know it's very inefficient. It's a case of I actually don't need to educate my customer about something that sounds a little esoteric. They already know what their frequency regulation problems are, and they are desperate for this solution.
All right, one more. Hands up high. Anybody? Okay, Darin from.
All right, thank you very much.
Darin, nice to meet you. Thank you.